Sean, I know that we jumped into this 90-second rapid fire thing, but I want to honor you for creating a space like this. I remember when I was 60 pounds overweight, I didn't have a YouTube video, a Facebook ad, a podcast, any of these things to be able to help me out. So I was stuck where I was at because I physically didn't think I could change my situation. And one guy sharing a message with me changed my life forever. Years prior to that, though, before I was 60 pounds overweight, there was a moment that changed my life for the negative forever. And I didn't know that if life can change for the negative, which people have had this happen. My dog got hit by a car when I was 12 years old or 10 years old. And it sucked. My life changed in the moment. I was sad, right? Like everything changed. I was crying. If it can happen for the negative in just one moment, couldn't it happen for the positive in just one moment? So the goal of this episode for me, for the people that are listening, and that's the biggest thing, is making it to the end,
Right.
is that to have those defining moments where everything just shifts forever. The same, if it can happen for the negative, it can happen for the positive, and you've created a space to be able to do that. So thank you. Appreciate it.
Yeah, absolutely. So I've been looking into you a little bit. You mentioned your dog. That's a true story about you?
Yeah. My dog got hit by a truck in Mexico when I was like 10.
Jeez.
My favorite dog, like my
I didn't know about
closest dog I've
that.
ever had.
Wow. But didn't, besides for that, you have kind of like a little bit of a rough upbringing? Like, didn't you and your dad not get along or something like that?
Yeah, it's a weird thing because looking back now, for everyone that's listening, no matter what, you did not have a good upbringing. There's not one person I know that actually had a perfect upbringing. Now, things might have been nice and you don't understand why you're so upset about it. Yet the biggest thing is that perception is reality. So let's say that your parents don't remember any of the things that you got hurt by. Like, oh man, like you hurt my feelings here, or this really spun me down the wrong thing, or you were really rude here. And you have these memories or these little traumas that we have from when we were a kid about something that our parents did or didn't do, or expectations that we had. And ultimately, a lot of times we were wrong because we were 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 years old, and we were stupid. Like we didn't know what the heck was going on. We didn't understand how to perceive things. We had our own insecurities. And the one thing that's interesting about insecurities is that, let's say you have an insecurity of a smile, of weight, of hair, of whatever it is, wrinkles, whatever, height, wiener size, whatever the thing is.
I think I have a bad voice, so I'll use that one.
A voice. You have a great voice.
Oh, I was fishing for a compliment, so thanks.
Yeah, you got it. So you walk into a room, people start laughing. Generally, people start thinking they spotted them. Oh man, they saw my smile. Like, was it my smile? Is that what they're laughing at? Are they looking at me? They end up perceiving what people are doing wrong because of their own insecurity. So going back to when we were children, and this happened to me, is that your perception's a reality. So things that your parents have said to you or said to me, when they said it to me, it hurt my feelings. Now, just because that's not true, they didn't mean it that way, they didn't mean for it to be rude, whatever it actually is, that doesn't mean that it's not true, because that perception is reality, and that reality to you is real. And a lot of times when I look back now, I go, man, like my dad really didn't dislike me that much. But at the time, I felt that way, which was real to me as a kid, even if they didn't mean it. And so it's okay if that happens. So for me, you're right, man. I went through things like 4 years old, my parents split up. They moved 10 minutes away. My stepmom moved right into my house, had the pressures of feeling like I had to call her mom. And she wasn't my mom, and she actually wasn't a mom at the time. So she had inherited this 4-year-old that she didn't understand or get at all. Meaning I remember getting yelled at. Nothing wrong with her. She's amazing. She messaged me the other day. She was right. Like I was dumb. I was 4 years old, 5 years old. And I used to always throw my laundry, right? Like in the laundry bin, or not throw it in. Or I'd throw it in and it'd be inside out. My sock would be inside out. I get yelled at. I'm sitting there thinking, I don't even know what the heck's going on. Like I was freaking tiny. I remember getting yelled at by my dad, 6 years old. He goes, Nicholas, you need to pick up the pace. And I'm like, I'm sitting there for 2 minutes getting yelled at going, toothpaste? Like paste. I'm like, I'm picturing toothpaste getting yelled at the whole time going, I don't know what the hell is going on. A lot of expectation on me as a little kid. And again, I was dumb. She didn't know. She wasn't a mom yet. So she just thought, why is this kid freaking so stupid? He doesn't know how to put his socks right side in. No, I was freaking 5, 6 years old and I didn't know what the heck was going on in the world. I could barely speak freaking English. That was a problem. That led me into
perception is reality. That's so important, because that kind of relates to like victim mindset a little bit because it's just how you perceive things. Like, I hate a victim mindset. My dad passed away when I was 12 from ALS, and I had to move. I moved from Syracuse to Chicago in 7th grade, and then from Chicago to Pennsylvania in 10th grade. I was the new kid in 7th and 10th grade. These were traumatizing things. And I could look back on that and be like, I'm a failure because my dad passed away. But I perceive it now as like, okay, Elon Musk had to be an immigrant, move from South Africa. Like, Steve Jobs had a rough childhood. I almost look at it as an advantage. And it's the same situation, but it's perception, and perception is reality. So you can basically take any situation, good or bad, and frame it in a way that helps you to the perception you want to give yourself.
And this is actually a positive way to actually overcome traumas of the past.
Right.
Generally, the traumas below 8 years old shape the lens that we look through life in. Like, everything that we do, the movies that we watch, the people that we talk to, the things that people say to us, it shapes our world. And oftentimes the problem is that when we get triggered, which is usually a response to a past trauma coming into the now, maybe someone calls you fat or joking around and you're hurt by that. Oh my gosh, freaking out, and you like want to lash out on them, or maybe someone says something to you and you just remember just moments. When I say triggered, probably people have memories of, man, I just yelled at my freaking wife. I just yelled at my husband. I just yelled at my kid because they said this and I thought they meant this by it. That's a trigger. The problem with triggers is that generally what happens is you go back into the size or the age of the brain that you got the trigger in. So if you first got triggered when you were 4 about this, you usually act like a 4-year-old when you get triggered again. Because the trauma, you're almost like locked in a cage at that age, not able to perceive that situation from a different perspective anymore. So like you were talking about that perception, generally one easy, simple thing that you could do is you can go back with your current knowledge, skill set, understanding, and go back to those memories and look at it from a third party and say, what was actually going on? So an example, my father-in-law, he got yelled at by his basketball coach, thought he was an idiot, thought he was stupid, told him he was whatever, dumb, slow, whatever. So he was traumatized by that his whole life. That brought him into thinking that all leaders are demeaning and tear people down. That led him into, when he would go into his workplace, every time there would be that similar type of leader leading the workforce, he'd always feel like he was less than, he was terrible, he was a dog, and all of a sudden it was like that one trauma affected how he looked at every single leader that way. This is why a lot of people that have daddy issues also don't like Donald Trump, right? He's just like domineering, kind of like intense leader, and they see that same trauma person pop up. And we do this with good people too, right? We have people that remind us of our moms, and we're like, oh, you're just like my mom. And you seek comfort. You're like, you're just like this person I know, right? When I was picking out the name for my son, I had this problem. I was like, man, all these names that I like, there's some ass out there that ruined this name. I'm like, I remember that guy, Jim, and he freaking ruined this name because he was lazy. And I'm like,
what's your son's name?
Kingston.
Do you know anyone else named Kingston?
I know a little baby now, and all I know is it's like a capital of Jamaica or something like that, but it's where the king lives. And I'm like, that's a great name. And there's no one else that I know that's ruined that.
And no one associated with it.
Exactly. So ultimately, when you go back in these times, we brought him back through just a little bit of meditation, throwing some music. You got to remember the moment. You got to be present with it. Went back and I go, what was your coach going through at the time?
Right.
Maybe he was hurt. Maybe he was triggered. Maybe he was insecure. And so we start looking at,
maybe he's just an asshole.
Or maybe he's an asshole.
Yeah.
But why is he an asshole, right? Even deeper. It's like, well, he's probably an asshole because of all these other things. And believe me, there's probably lots of assholes out there. I just find that generally when I talk to people, they're not as bad as they make it seem like. You're not like the biker dude that's an asshole. When I sit down and go, dude, like what's going on? Like all of a sudden they're different. They're not an asshole. I can talk to them. This is like Republicans and Democrats, right? They like yell all day. And the other day I got a Republican and Democrat together that freaking yell at each other. And we went to lunch and we were like chatting, small talk and everything. We were all freaking like best friends. I'm like,
so this country needs more of that, obviously.
100%. And so ultimately we went back to that time and we were able to look at it differently and then change the belief and the understanding of what happened in that moment and release that trigger. The best thing about triggers, and people can maybe learn some of this through, there's the I method, EMDR, I something, whatever. You can look up EMDR definition.
Okay.
And one of the things they talk about is, let's say that you have a trauma today. You get triggered and you go, I want to be better. I yelled at someone or I got upset about something. I want to be better today. And so you start picking apart what happened earlier today and try to figure out what happened. How could I not act that way? Let's say maybe even you think 5 years back and you go, I remember 5 years ago, I got triggered that same way. What happens is you clear when you've overcome that trauma from 5 years ago, you clear from 5 years to now. Right. Yet you still have all these other traumas. The benefit is if you go back to the first time you had a trauma, right? Going to the root of the cause rather than going to the symptoms, the fruit, picking the fruit off the tree, thinking, no, when you pick fruit off a tree, you actually just cause it to grow back faster. It's called pruning. You prune a tree, it grows back faster, it gets bigger. People think that I could just prune my problems. No, you prune your problems, they get bigger. It's called what you focus on increases. You think if I just don't eat ice cream, I'll get fit. Well, then you start thinking about ice cream. Don't eat ice cream. Don't eat ice cream. Don't eat ice cream. It builds desire. And then you go to eat ice cream. Back to the root cause. Pull up the root cause. You pull up the whole plant. You go back to the original trauma, and that's the key of it. When's the first time you felt that way?
Right.
You go back to the original trauma. I remember for me, I was always afraid of being left, forgotten, rejected. One of the first things that I didn't remember because I was too young was at 0 to 2, I was in daycare, 2 to 4, I was in preschool. But I do remember this one key moment. My brother was 6 years older than me, and his friends were 6 years older as well. Think I'm about 5 years old at the time. So they're about 11, which means that the girls that my brother was hanging out with, I was like, those are grown-up girls to me, right? I'm like 5 years old, they're 11. I'm like, oh, like I want their respect. I want them to like me, like that. They look so cool. They're cute, whatever.
Right.
We're playing hide and go seek. And I still remember to this day, I hid in the apartment complex inside of the dryer. I'm in there for like 30 minutes, dude. No one finds me. Finally, I come out and I realized that they just left me there and they just went on doing their own thing. And I felt so hurt.
That's your root.
I felt so hurt. I felt so rejected, and by a woman as well, right? So there's like so many different feelings there. I just remember getting those little baseball bats, right? There's like those ones that you go to the ball game and you go to professional baseball and you get these tiny little bats.
Little one.
I had one. And I was like, I just want to freaking hit her with. I was so angry,
Damn.
but I just couldn't do it. I ran up to her and I was like, I could never hit her.
Right.
And I went on with life. Well, through going through these experiences of personal growth and wanting to be a better leader and a better husband and a better father and a better person, it's like, man, like, there's something there where I felt rejected. Where can I go back and understand this from? She's an 11-year-old girl. Has her own insecurities. I was a little, wow, that was badass. I found the hindsight. They couldn't even find me the entire time. And I get to look at it from today's perspective.
You won the game.
Dude, I freaking won that game. I get to look at it from today's perspective with new knowledge. And sometimes guidance with a friend maybe helps as well, helping you figure out and understand this and looking at it from a new perspective so that you gain a new reality. We talked about perspective as reality.
So your father-in-law, when he had the old coach that gave him trouble as a kid, and then he's looked at every leader as somebody who was going to be just as bad as that guy.
A leader is an asshole, always.
Yeah, was he aware of that? Or is that something that once he figured it out, then it basically solved it? Because you notice, oh, wait, this guy's great. It's just my old basketball coach that was a dick. So is the key to it the acknowledgement of the root? And then once you find out how silly that is because they're not connected, that can help heal you? Is that kind of what it is?
100%. He didn't notice that there was any correlation until he went through an experience like we just talked about. And then he was able to go back. He just still remembered all the trauma and the hurt and all those feelings. And anytime he saw a leader was asshole, domineering, someone who was seeking control. They weren't seeking to lead.
Right.
So an example is actually one of my mentors, a Navy SEAL. And every single time he was around this Navy SEAL, he always thought the Navy SEAL was going to call him out, make him feel bad, like pull him down. And this Navy SEAL was like the most encouraging person that I know. Like he always saw the best in people and always encouraged them as long as they just showed up. And, that was pretty much it. Like if you show up, I have respect for you. And this guy always thought, man, he's going to tear me down because that's what he thought a leader was because of his past experiences, which didn't allow him to ever grow in that type of leadership or that type of relationship. And again, through healing that past conflict, it then shifts the lens that you now look at people through And now all of a sudden you're able to interact with them completely different. Now I'm
Wow.
shortcutting it a little bit. Maybe talk to like a
No,
therapist or
that's
something.
no.
But
I was gonna say it's kind of like therapy. I mean, that's really powerful. I personally think I have like a strong mind, and I have kind of dealt with these own things inside myself. But I almost have like forgotten about that. Like if I'm trying to help somebody else, you have to look at those flaws and those irrational feelings, and then help them go back to the root, find it, and look how dumb that is. Now look at that situation with fresh eyes, and then that starts the healing process for somebody else. I like forgot about
and
that. That's actually
one
really
thing,
powerful.
one thing that we didn't touch on, dude, is like finding a new belief. So if your belief out of that was that I'm worthless or I'm not valuable, right? Like mine was when I was like,
Uh-huh.
I got rejected by that girl, like I'm just not valuable. Well, it's like, what's the opposite of that I could build a new foundation of belief, a new seed that I could plant? And again, a seed. This is something that's nurtured. That's not just like this silver lining, like silver bullet, where all of a sudden you're like never gonna have a problem. No, things will arise again and test you and try to get you to go back to this old comfortable belief system that you've
Right.
known to love. Yet you've planted this new seed of I am valuable. I'm a person
Right.
that people want to spend time with me. And continuing to build that belief now builds this new tree, this
Right.
new fruit.
And the
And it
stronger the
becomes
tree is, the less a new problem will be a
100%.
detriment to
Yeah.
it.
If you
That's
don't,
so powerful, man.
like, if
That's
you're
really,
secure, you don't care about what people
of course.
think or do. If you know who you are, doesn't matter. And again, for people that are out there that are thinking, man, like, what about when new problems come? I know for me, when I became a father, new problems came into my life, new blessings, new problems.
Uh-huh.
One of the big thick quotes that I always stick in my pocket is pressure never creates weakness, it only exposes it. When you think
Right.
about the pipes that are inside of my house right now, bringing water to the sinks, if I were to turn up the pressure of the water until the pipe bursts, the pipe doesn't just disintegrate and the whole thing bursts. It
Right.
only bursts in the weakest point first. It's pretty fair, right? Weakest part of the pipe
Absolutely.
is what
Absolutely.
bursts.
A screw's
And
loose somewhere or something. That's the weakest point.
yeah. And so was the pipe, did it just all of a sudden get weaker? Or did the weakness of the pipe finally get exposed through increased
Right.
pressure? It was always there.
Right.
It just wasn't ever exposed because there was not enough pressure there. And
Right.
so every time that something like this happens and you get a trigger or you get these new problems, you think, oh, I got more problems to deal with. Here's more traumas, or you just try to push it down. Oh, I don't want to deal with that. If I just don't have any problems, I've already dealt with a lot of my past stuff. No, like look at it as an opportunity. You go, oh my gosh, the pressure's been turned up. Something's been exposed in me that
Right.
was already there. And now I have an opportunity to be able to face it, repair it, strengthen it, so that I can withstand more pressure. And so I don't look at it as I have a new problem. I look at it as, oh, wow, this problem was already
Opportunity.
there. It's just exposed now. Now I can deal with it. I'm in a better place than I was before, which most people, when they're going through problems, they think, oh man, I'm in a worse spot than I was before. Last
Right.
year, I was
And
so
that's
confident.
perception. That's back to the perception.
Totally. I look at it differently. I framed it differently. I go, oh, what an opportunity.
Right.
I'm better than I was before because I had this problem. I didn't even know it. That's called ignorance.
Yeah.
That sucks. This is where people say, oh man, you ever have those people that, you know, that I used to have an employee like this. This dude was like, I'm so self-aware. I'm self-aware. I'm self-aware. And then always around all the ladies, he'd pop in a bunch of nuts in his mouth and always chew with his mouth open. Loud as could be. Like other people can see sometimes our things that we're not aware of. This guy, I was like, I got to tell this guy. He's chewing his
tell
freaking
him.
mouth all the time. But he was like self-aware. He was self-aware. He was a self-aware person. Like, dog.
Like, was he
nah.
actually a self-aware person and just not self-aware of that?
In other areas for sure. It's just funny
Okay.
that oftentimes when we think we're up here doing really, really good, other people can see it. And
Right.
you know, generally people are too scared to be like, hey, where can I be better? I go to my wife a lot of times and I go, honey, where could I be better?
Yeah.
I'm always so scared. I'm nervous, dude. I'm like, she's gonna rip me a new one. And then it's always like something very small and simple. And I'm like, wow,
Yeah.
I just do that little thing and you think I'd be better? It's
Yeah.
very encouraging. And you want
Dude,
those
I
types of people
love-
around you.
I love that perception. I am so happy when I get like a negative comment or like an insult. I've almost framed it for like my dream is to have like a Comedy Central roast where all my friends like make fun of all my insecurities, because people don't like to tell you the things you do bad. And I need to hear them. I don't care. I'm fine. I just need your perception. Like, actually my friend came
By
to
the way,
visit.
for the people listening,
Yeah.
like, you're a freaking weirdo. I freaking hate that crap. But
I love it, dude. I love getting mocked.
Yeah, dude. I love it.
Because it's kind of like a fun way for people to tell you that stuff. I had a friend come visit, and he said, yo, at the end of your YouTube videos, you have that thing where you say, hey, like subscribe. He's like, I don't like that. You should do like sorry, my chair's going down here. He said, you should do like something different at the end. I don't like that. And I said, thank you so much, my friend Nico. And we changed it to something different. I'm like, bet you a bunch of other people didn't like that, just didn't care about me enough to tell me, or didn't want to hurt my feelings. Like, so I just like to have the mindset of keeping almost telling myself I like to get insulted, so that when someone does come up to me and tell me something, I'm like, okay, thank you. I appreciate that. It doesn't hurt me at all.
Is it cool if I rip on that for 1 second?
Yeah, absolutely.
Not in a bad way.
No, I'm not secure enough to hear it.
Right? Yeah. Hold on. Let me rip on you real quick now.
All right, do it.
The big thing for everyone listening is that this is where mentors and close people in your circle really come in really well. I believe that everyone out there in the world has 2 cents to say about everything that we're doing. And ultimately, it's usually only worth about 2 cents because it has no context. They don't know who you are. They don't know what you've been through. And this is where I love having the paid mentors that I have, the non-paid mentors, the close friend group where I can actually get, this is why I love my relationship with my wife, is that if someone were to say something, I would go to her and, hey, is there truth in this? Like, you know me better than all of these people in the world combined, because they only seen little bits and pieces of me, and they put together who they think I am and try to give advice based on whatever their perception is of me and what they feel from it and all this stuff. So you have these close people to you, so that when the 2 cents comes and they say, Sean, your voice sucks, right? Like you talked about saying that your voice sucks. And some ass goes out there and you get on Oprah and you're in front of millions of people and someone says, man, this guy's voice freaking sucks, right? Like this insecure guy sitting there in the cheap seats at the basketball game telling LeBron James he should have passed the ball. Those are the people that yell at you. They're not in the game. These are people that are in the cheap seats. You don't feel that because you go, I got my close group of friends. I got my mentors around me that they're not giving me their 2 cents. They actually are close enough to me and are willing to have those conversations. Like for me, I used to not be able to get on camera like this at all. I was like allergic to the camera. I remember actually I have a banana that I just ate, a banana right here. And I filmed my first video. I was eating a banana and I couldn't breathe. I was like, I'm allergic to bananas. I'm allergic to nuts. I don't know what's going on. I found out I'm like allergic to the camera. I was so anxious that I couldn't breathe. I'd be in between sentences and I couldn't breathe. And I remember feeling like I'm allergic. I don't know what the hell's going on. And so I remember taking 3 years of these speaking classes, and I didn't want to be a speaker at all. I didn't want to be on camera really. Then all of a sudden I got my first speaking engagement. And one of my mentors, I asked, can you help me out get better at this? He got taught from Bill Clinton's speaking coach, which whatever people care about Bill Clinton, he gets paid hundreds of thousands of dollars.
He's a good speaker.
To talk.
Yeah.
Yeah. I've never really watched him, but this guy's coach, I guess, is really good. So, and that's just, I just haven't ever watched it. I haven't watched a lot of presidents speak or give a great speech. So apparently gets paid a lot of money. So can you watch this for me? For 2 years, this dude watched my Facebook lives, my videos, and we'd watch him for like 2 hours, and he'd stop it like every 30 seconds to talk about everything I did wrong.
I would love that.
And it took me like 2 years to get a compliment, about a year and a half. And they finally said, that was really good. Really? Like that was really good? I remember one time I said super awesome 115 times. I just kept saying it. Oh man, super awesome. And this happened, super awesome. So he made me count with him, sit there, pause.
That's awesome.
47, 48, awesome. 49. But again, he was a close mentor. He had my best interest in mind.
Right.
It wasn't just some random guy on Facebook that was giving the 2 cents, because everyone will do that. And at that point, you're going to have so much feedback that, it's like being so open-minded that your brain falls out.
That's funny. As you're saying that, I was watching back some of my videos, and I actually did like look into a speaking coach, and I've talked to him once. I'm talking to him again next week, but I know that I say right too much. So as I'm sitting here, I'm saying right, and I'm thinking to myself, don't say right. But but my friend Nico is someone that I trusted. Right? I say right. I do it too much, man. I'm trying to work on it.
But notice that it depends what you're doing, dude. Notice that when you say right, I'm nodding my head. Right is called a trial close. You want to get people to nod their head. I have a great friend of mine that's a great speaker, but not a professional speaker. And she sells lots of stuff, like millions of dollars a week of stuff. And she says right more than anyone I know. But everyone is going like this the whole time. So when she says,
I'm also a head
nodder. Buy this?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's mirroring. The
Okay.
best
Right.
waitresses and waiters head nod. They go, "Oh, you want some wine?" And and you're like, "Yeah," because you can't say no when you're nodding your head yes. So there are some benefits to what you're doing. I get that you may
Okay.
not want to use it as
Cut
much
it
as a
back a little
crutch,
bit.
but
Right.
for sure,
Right. See, I just did it. I just did it. But okay,
right?
that's at least not the worst thing. It's not the worst thing. But
Have you
yeah, my
done
one
the
thing
Have you
to
done the rubber band thing?
no.
Put the rubber band on your wrist, and every time you say right, you snap it.
Mm. Okay. I
So
like that.
it just reminds you every single time to do it. This is what
Right.
my friends and I used to do.
Just did it again. All right.
So
We're
this
gonna
is where you'd
count.
snap the band, and you'd have this welt. By the end of the day, you'd have a welt, and it would remind you every time you catch it, so you can actually see when it happens.
Yeah. Yeah.